If you're anything like me, I am always on the go and I needed a little travel case for my straightener and curling iron, so I've made one up for you today. Let me show you how to do it. All right, so like I said, I love to travel and I like to have all of my stuff with me. And one thing that I really needed was a case that if I was finishing my hair at the last minute and needed to throw my straightener or my curling iron into the suitcase, wouldn't then melt any of my clothes or goodies in the suitcase. So now we have this great little hot tool travel case that is ready to go for you, and you just need a couple of fat quarters. So I chose these two beautiful prints from the Woodland Keeper line by Maureen Cracknell for Art Gallery Fabrics. They're so cute. I just love these little mushrooms and flowers and moons. It's just perfect. So one of each of those. You're also going to need some Insul-Bright and some scrap batting basically laying around. You just need a 12 by 18 inch piece of both of those. So let's start with our cutting. I'll move some of this out of the way. From our fat quarters, you need to select whichever one is going to be the outside of your travel case. And of course, I went with this beautiful print here. And so to begin with, since I know my fat quarter this direction, the shorter direction, measures about 18, I'm just going to assume that, and I like to just fold this like so. And then we're going to measure over 12 inches. And make a cut. Make sure this is all straight. And I'm going to straighten up this one edge here. There we go. Measure over 12. That should be right there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And make a cut. And then we also need to make a 3-inch strip. And this is going to be for our little strap to close up our case. And this just needs to measure 3 by 5.5. So let's just open this up. And I'll have this hang over a 1/2 inch since I know my ruler is 5 inches. And make a cut. So we have a little bit left over from that fat quarter, so we'll just set that aside for now and move on to this pretty red fabric. So same idea here. We need to make our 12 by 18 inch cut first. So I will do that. And then from the remainder of this, I need to get at least 4 2¼ inch binding strips. So I'm going to just measure over 2¼ 1, 2, 3, and one more. Makes 4. There we go. And then this is just our little bit of waste from that. So now we are going to create a quilt sandwich, and so whatever one you decide to be the outside of your bag, the inside of your bag needs to go down, and then we would put a layer of our Insul-Bright, and so that is like a thermal batting. It's made to kind of protect you from heat. So that would go next, and then we would put a layer of regular batting, and then we would top it with our outside fabric. Sorry, I keep switching that. Just like so. And then you're just going to do some basic straight line quilting. And so that's what I've done here. You can see this is my completed quilt sandwich. I've got my lining fabric, my Insul-Bright, my batting, and my outside. And then I just did very basic 1-inch straight line quilting across this whole thing. And you don't want to quilt it too densely because you do want to make sure that it doesn't shrink too much for you to still get the cuts that you need. So let's go ahead now that we have this done and let's make our cuts. So the first one that we need for the larger section, that's going to make our little flap that you see here, needs to measure 5 by 17 and a half. And so we have, it looks like, about 11 and a half inches. So I know I can trim off one of these ends and make sure everything is really nice and straight. So I'm going to get a bigger ruler, and I'm going to do that to begin with. Just get this out of here. Just true up this long edge. Make sure. There we go. Just even it up. And so now I'm going to measure over 5 inches. And make a cut. There we go. 1, and then we're going to do that same thing again. There we go. And this is just extra, just to give you plenty of room in case it shrinks. And so now we can turn this, and we're going to make the 2 lengths that we need. So the longer one needs to measure 17 and a half. And this is pretty darn close. So I'm actually just going to lay my ruler on here. 17 and a half, and I can just barely shave some off on this side, just like so. It's okay though, I'm not worried about this. You might notice that my batting is sticking out. This is all going to get caught in my binding. So that is not an issue. And then on this one, we need to trim it to 13 and a half. There we go. Make sure everything's straight and trim off that end. There we go. So now, remember we have our little binding strips. I am just going to attach those on the diagonal just like this. I always like to do my binding this way so that you have less bulk in your seams. So you're just going to attach this one after the other, after the other. And this, of course, is a little bit shorter lengths than we typically work with binding, but it gives us plenty for this project, which it's nice to be able to get all of that out of our back border. And you'll just add one after the other. I have this all ready to go, but then you'll just come through, trim this off, and then we can press this open. And we would then iron in half longwise, just like this, our entire strip, just so we can finish binding this. But first, let's make the little strap that we have. So that was our 3 by 5.5 inch rectangle, remember? So we are going to press this in half longwise. Just like so, and then we will fold in each raw edge to meet that press line. Same thing on the other side. There we go. And then we'll fold that in on itself. Give it one more press. And now I like to do a line of stitching on this side, obviously, to close up that open end. And then I just mirror the same thing on the other side, just so it looks nice and even and balanced. There we go, there's one. Flip that around and go down the other side. There we go. Now we can just set this aside for a moment. So our first step is going to be attaching the binding to this shorter piece. So this is the 5 by 13 and a half inch piece, and we are just going to bind the top edge. So I am going to take my binding. Where's my little piece? Here we go, and remember I just pressed a little bit in half for us, And we're going to lay this along the top edge. We're going to sew it down with a 1/4 inch seam. There we go. Now we're just going to trim off this little bit of excess and leave this for later on in the project. And now we can fold this back. And if you want, you can totally bind this by hand, but I am going to bind this on the machine and just stitch in the ditch to finish this off. So we're just rolling that around, giving it a good press. So hopefully you can see here this overlap. Now that I've pressed this around, you can see it really well on this side. Here's the front edge of the binding, and you see I've got almost a 1/4 inch overhang on the back side. So now when I put this under the machine, if I stitch right along that seam line, I know I'm going to catch all of that fabric on the back side. And I'm not worried about it because it's going to be tucked inside of my case. And so it's pretty easy to finish it off this way, at least for this part. So we're just stitching right in the ditch. Just like so. It looks really nice and neat. And now we can just use our scissors and trim off these 2 sides. Beautiful. Just like that. All right, so now we're getting really close. We have one more step with our longer piece. Remember, this is the one that measures 5 by 17.5. And so we just need to make this little point that goes onto the top of our case. And so remember, this is 5 inches wide. So we need to find the center point, which means it's going to measure over 2.5 inches, which is right here for me. I'm just using my mat. And then we're going to measure down 2.5 inches. And then I'm just going to use my ruler. Maybe it'd be easier for you guys to see if I move off of these smaller grids. So see, there's my 2.5 up to the middle, and then I'm coming down 2.5, just like so. And you could totally draw a line if you want. I am all about things just being quick and easy, so I'm just going to freehand it. There's that one. And then we can turn this and go the opposite direction. Making sure everything's straight, just like so. And now we have a point. So simple. So now we have the back side of our bag, the front side, and our little strap. So this is still a little long. We made it a little bigger because we wanted to be able to trim it down. So now we can trim this down to 5 inches exactly. Turn this, just like so. So then we just want to measure down about an inch, 1.5 inches, just enough that this is going to get caught in there. It's about 1 inch from there. I just always eyeball it. And then we can put some clips in here, or you can do a line of basting stitches to hold all of this together. And so that's kind of what I like to do, especially just this part up here. I'm going to take a really narrow seam. I'm going to lengthen my stitch length just a bit, and I'm just going to sew this in place. Just there. And I can cut my thread. And I can come along the bottom. And you could totally pin if you wanted, but sometimes basting is just really nice to hold it all together. There's a little line of stitches there, and then I'm just going to do this opposite side where the strap is. Just like so. And so you can see that's all adhered together. And now all that I need to do, where did I put my binding, is we are just going to bind all the way around this bag. and enclose that outer edge. And when you do that, you get this beautiful finish. I did finish this one by hand just because it looks really clean and you can see both sides of this binding, but you could do it by machine and it would still finish beautifully. And so that is it. It's such a quick and easy project, and now you have a cute hot tool case for you to travel and take your tools on the go. So I hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and I'll see you next time on At Home with Misty. Hey everyone, it's Misty. Thanks for watching At Home. If you aren't already a part of our Missouri Star family, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell if you want a notification every time we release a new video. I'll see you next Monday on the newest episode of At Home.